Every day, people walk around wearing masks, not the kind you can see, but the kind that hides what's really going on inside. They smile, they laugh, they push forward, acting like everything is fine. They show up at work, go to the gym, post happy moments on social media, and pretend like they have it all together, but behind closed doors, when the lights go out, when no one's watching, they collapse. You see, the world has taught us that showing pain is a sign of weakness. We've been conditioned to believe that admitting we're struggling makes us less capable, less valuable, or even less worthy. So what do? We fake it. We tell ourselves to be strong. We convince ourselves that if we can just hold on a little longer, the pain will fade, the weight will lift, and everything will be okay. But what if I told you that this idea of strength, the one where you keep your struggles bottled up and suffer in silence, is actually the very thing that's killing you? Think about it. How many times have you told someone, "I'm fine," when deep inside you felt like you were drowning? How many nights have you laid in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling exhausted but unable to sleep because your mind won't stop replaying the same thoughts, the same worries, the same fears? How many times have you shown up for everyone else, given them your energy, your time, your support, only to feel completely empty when you're alone? The mask of strength is the greatest lie we tell ourselves. And the longer we wear it, the heavier it becomes. Now you might be thinking, but what choice do I have? If I break down, who's going to pick up the pieces? If I admit I'm struggling, won't people see me differently? I get it. The fear of judgment is real. The fear of being seen as weak, vulnerable, or not enough is what keeps so many people trapped in silence. But let me ask you this. What's the cost of pretending? What is it costing you right now to act like everything is fine when it's not? For some, it's costing them their peace. They can't enjoy the present moment because they're constantly fighting a war inside their own mind. For others, it's costing them their health. Stress, anxiety, and bottled up emotions manifest in the body. Headaches, fatigue, muscle tension, even serious illnesses. And for far too many, it's costing them their happiness, their relationships, and in some cases, even their lives. Look around you. The strongest people you know, the ones who always seem to have it together, are often the ones hurting the most, because they've spent their entire lives being the rock for others. They don't know how to ask for help themselves. They've been so busy taking care of everyone else that they've forgotten how to take care of themselves. But here's what no one tells you. Real strength isn't about pretending you're okay when you're not. It's about having the courage to say, "I'm struggling." It's about knowing that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It's one of the most powerful things you can embrace. Think of the people you admire most, the ones who inspire you, the ones who've overcome the odds. Did they do it by bottling up their pain and pretending it wasn't there? No. They did it by facing their struggles head on. They acknowledged their pain, they asked for help when they needed it, and they gave themselves permission to feel. Because pain doesn't make you weak. Hiding it does. If you keep carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders without ever releasing it, it's only a matter of time before it crushes you. If you keep telling yourself to just push through without ever addressing what's really going on, you'll wake up one day wondering why you feel completely disconnected from yourself and everyone around you. And that's not what life is about. Life isn't about pretending, it's about experiencing everything. The highs, the lows, the victories, and the struggles. It's about being real, being human, and allowing yourself to feel. Because when you stop pretending, when you finally take off that mask, you don't just free yourself, you give others permission to do the same. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream, it whispers. It hides beneath forced smiles and empty laughs. It lingers in the quiet moments when no one's around. It's the pain that people carry every single day, pretending it doesn't exist, hoping that if they ignore it long enough, it will just disappear. But here's the brutal truth. Pain doesn't vanish just because you refuse to acknowledge it. In fact, the more you suppress it, the more power it gains over you. Pain buried alive never dies. It festers. It seeps into every part of your life, poisoning your happiness, your relationships, your health, and your ability to truly live. Think about it. How often do people say, "I'm fine," when they're anything but fine? How many times have you brushed off your own pain, telling yourself, "It's not that bad," or "Other people have it worse"? We minimize our suffering because admitting it feels like weakness. We tell ourselves that if we just stay busy, if we just keep pushing forward, we won't have to deal with what's really going on inside. But here's what no one tells you. Avoiding pain doesn't make you stronger. It makes you a prisoner. You might not even realize it, but every time you push your pain aside instead of facing it, you're adding another brick to the invisible wall around you. And over time, that wall gets so high, so thick, that it separates you not just from other people, but from yourself. You start to feel disconnected. You go through the motions of life, but nothing feels real. You smile, but it doesn't reach your eyes. You laugh, but it doesn't touch your soul. That's what happens when suffering is silenced. It doesn't go away, it just digs itself deeper, embedding into your thoughts, your emotions, your body. It turns into chronic stress, into anxiety, into depression. It shows up in the form of fatigue, tension, sleepless nights, constant overthinking. And the worst part, it convinces you that this is just the way life is now. But it's not. Pain is not meant to be ignored. It's meant to be processed, to be understood, to be released. When you pretend it's not there, you don't escape it. You give it control. Think of a wound. If you ignore it, if you refuse to clean it out, what happens? It gets infected. It spreads. It becomes something far worse than it ever needed to be. Emotional pain is no different. The more you neglect it, the more it eats away at you from the inside out. Some people turn to distractions, work, social media, partying, constant activity, anything to avoid being alone with their thoughts. Others numb the pain with food, alcohol, or substances, trying to drown out the feelings they're too afraid to face. And some just shut down completely, walking through life like a ghost of who they used to be. And yet, from the outside, everything looks normal. That's the most dangerous part. Because the world praises resilience. It applauds people for being strong when they push through pain without complaint. But what the world doesn't see is the cost of that silence, the sleepless nights, the anxiety that won't go away, the feeling of being trapped in your own life, the slow, quiet erosion of joy. The truth is, the strongest people aren't the ones who pretend nothing hurts them. The strongest people are the ones who have the courage to say, "This is hard. I'm struggling. I need to deal with this." Because that's what healing requires, acknowledgement. You can't fix a problem you refuse to admit exists. You can't move forward if you're weighed down by everything you've never allowed yourself to process. And make no mistake, unspoken pain doesn't just stay in one place. It spreads. It affects how you treat others. It shapes how you see yourself. It influences the way you react to situations, the way you trust or don't trust people, the way you view love, success, and happiness. How many relationships have been destroyed not because of a lack of love, but because one or both people were carrying unspoken pain that they never dealt with? How many dreams have been abandoned because someone didn't believe they were worthy of happiness? How many lives have been lost, literally, because someone felt like no one could understand their pain? Silent suffering is not noble. It's not strength. It's a slow poison that robs you of everything good in life. And the only way to stop it is to stop pretending. For too long, people have been told to move on, stay strong, or just let it go. They hear it from friends, family, and even themselves. This idea that pain is something to be ignored, pushed down, or swept under the rug. But what happens when you keep shoving something deeper and deeper into a place it doesn't belong? Eventually it breaks out, and when it does, it doesn't come quietly. Pain doesn't just disappear because you refuse to acknowledge it. It lingers. It waits. And when you don't deal with it on your terms, it finds its own way out through anger, through anxiety, through self-doubt, through toxic habits. It shows up in the way you react to situations, in the way you treat the people you love, in the way you see yourself when you look in the mirror. It becomes part of your identity, whether you realize it or not. And that's the real danger. When pain is ignored for too long, it stops feeling like something separate from you. It starts to feel like who you are. Some people carry pain for years without even realizing how much it's controlling them. They don't see how it's shaping their decisions, limiting their potential, or keeping them trapped in patterns that don't serve them. They think, that's just how I am, or this is just the way life is. But it's not. That's just the weight of unprocessed pain dictating their life. But here's the truth. Pain only has power over you as long as you refuse to own it. The moment you stop running from it, the moment you stop pretending it doesn't exist, everything shifts. Because now, instead of letting it control you, you're facing it on your own terms. You're acknowledging that it happened, that it hurt, that it changed you, and instead of carrying it like a burden, you start using it as fuel. Owning your pain doesn't mean you let it define you. It means you take control of the narrative. It means you stop being a victim of what happened and start becoming the author of what happens next. Think about how much energy it takes to suppress pain. The constant effort to keep it buried, to distract yourself, to act like everything is fine, it's exhausting. And the truth is that energy could be used for something greater. Instead of spending your life avoiding pain, what if you use that energy to transform it? What if you allowed it to teach you, to strengthen you, to push you forward instead of holding you back? That's the difference between suffering and growth. Suffering is pain without purpose. Growth is pain that's been given direction. And the only way to get there is by breaking the chains. Those chains are the beliefs you've held on to, the ones that tell you you're not enough, that you'll never heal, that you're stuck. Those chains are the fears that keep you from confronting what hurts. Those chains are the expectations of the world telling you to keep quiet, to keep pretending, to keep hiding behind a mask. But none of those things are real. They only have power because you've allowed them to. The moment you choose to own your pain, to acknowledge it instead of avoiding it, those chains start to break. Because now, instead of being controlled by what happened to you, you're using it. You're growing from it. You're taking back your life one piece at a time. And that is where true freedom begins. Pain is one of the most misunderstood forces in life. Most people see it as an enemy, something to be avoided, something to fear. They spend their lives running from it, numbing it, denying it. But what if pain isn't here to break you? What if it's here to build you? What if, instead of crushing you, it's trying to carve out the strongest, most unstoppable version of yourself? The truth is, pain has power. It can destroy you, yes, but it can also transform you if you learn how to use it. Think about the people you admire, the ones who have achieved something great, who have overcome impossible odds. Do you think they did it without pain? Do you think they got to where they are because life was easy for them? No, they faced struggles that could have broken them. They experienced loss, rejection, failure, heartbreak, but instead of letting that pain define them, they turned it into fuel. Pain is energy, and energy doesn't just disappear. It has to go somewhere. If you suppress it, it festers. It shows up in destructive ways. Anger, bitterness, fear, self-doubt. But if you take that same energy and channel it, something incredible happens. It becomes drive. It becomes hunger. It becomes the fire that pushes you beyond your limits, the force that makes you stronger, the reason you refuse to quit. Look at athletes, fighters, entrepreneurs, artists, people who have risen from nothing. What do they all have in common? They didn't escape pain. They embraced it. They let it teach them. They let it push them forward instead of holding them back. Because pain is a signal. It's telling you something. It's showing you where you need to grow, where you need to change, where you need to fight harder. And if you listen to it, if you use it, instead of running from it, you can turn it into power. But here's the key. You have to make the decision. You have to decide that your pain will not be wasted, that it will not be an anchor dragging you down, but a launching pad that propels you forward. That every hardship, every setback, every moment of suffering will serve a purpose. And when you make that choice, when you commit to using your pain instead of being consumed by it, you become unstoppable.